Poker's legendary champions, next generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Tactical Tuesday on Chasing Poker Greatness with your hosts, Brad Wilson and John Chai.
Welcome, my friend, to another episode of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. As always, this is your host, the founder of ChasingPokerGreatness.com, Coach Brad Wilson. Today's Tuesday, so it is a tactical day. I'm joined by John. How are we doing, sir?
Doing really good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Just ready to talk about some hands in a tactical fashion, I think, is the way that things are done around here.
So this week we have suited connectors in 3-bet, 4-bet pots, re-raised pots, pre-flop. So yeah, let's just kick it off. I mean, 7-8 of spades in the cutoff.
Yeah. Disclaimer, by the way, before John just like dives headfirst into the hand. I have just eaten an edible. It's 8 p.m. and so, it's really a race against time. We better get these hands correct because at the end of today's show, I could be mumbling and just not making much coherent sense.
Either get this done in one take or there's no Tactical Tuesday this week.
Yep, just one take, baby. I mean, it's getting done in one take, one way or the other. So we'll see how it goes down. All right.
8 of spades in the cutoff. we're gonna have to hurry this thing up. I open. Cutoff. The button is a reg. 3 bets to 80. I call everything normal pre-flop. Not much to talk about. Interesting flop. 9-6-4, 2 diamonds. Well, I think we could already start talking about stuff like donking. Kind of
being in the cards.
Like this is one of the boards where that might be an option, even though I've never really looked at a donking strategy as the out of position pre-flop caller in a 3-bet pot. But this feels like it could be a good one.
Yeah, feels that way. Who knows if it is, but it feels like it could be. Certainly a reasonable board where, the out of position player's going to have 6s, 4s, and 9s. So all the sets, and then also higher connectivity to the board than the in position pre-flop raiser. So donking looks like it's on the table.
Yeah, I actually don't donk. I just thought of that right now as I looked at the flop.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could be a thing. So
I started with a check, though.
Yeah, shocker there. Villain bets half pot. And so, yeah, I guess we have another decision point here on the flop.
Yeah, whether to check raise or check call. Fold is definitely not an option. Okay, so the way I was thinking about this hand and just like the spot in general is that I have like a check raising range, like a check raise bluff range that includes hands that are like really unhappy about getting jammed on, like this one, I think, and then some hands that are sort of, it's fine if they get jammed on because they have so much equity. Most of those are going to be flush draws. Although I guess it's like, I don't know, like flush draw plus overcard, like type hands. That's kind of how I was thinking about the spot. I don't know how you feel about check raising versus check calling.
I mean, this is kind of a scenario where I think both are probably just on the table, right? Like I think that check raising is going to be okay. I think check calling is going to be okay.
Does the c-bet size play into your decision at all?
It would. I look at the half pot and would start thinking that this is a lower frequency c-bet. And generally with lower frequency c-bet, they're more selective about the hands that they are c-betting. So generally they have a little bit more equity in their range when they choose this bigger sizing of half pot instead of a third. So I think that, when you do check raise the flop, you're probably going to get ripped on.
More frequently than I would if they had started out with like a 1/3 c-bet.
Yeah. And, this is not a hand, as you said, that this is not a hand that you want to like play an all in here with. villains are going to have like flush draws with overcards that just completely crush our open-ended straight draw here. So like, I think the conservative path would be to just check call and then play things accordingly, which is also just a totally reasonable path.
Yep, that's the path I pick. So I call the 85, the half pot. Woo! Turn the nuts, 5 of hearts. So I turn the nuts straight, double flush draw on the board. I didn't really consider donking here. I don't know if that's.
I don't know. I mean, I think like the button's going to be 3-betting like their 7-8 suiteds at a decent clip. So like I don't think that this turn is like necessarily much better for us than it is for them. So I think that like checking is way more natural. I don't think that I would donk here.
I did not donk. I expected to face a bet here really frequently though, and I actually didn't face a bet. The button does check back, but I just thought that a lot of the hands, or like almost all the hands that start by big betting the flop, are gonna barrel this like double flush draw turn. Like I think like even the lowest equity hands that big bet the flop, a lot of them are gonna be like backdoor flush draw with 2 over type hands, and then like the value is like over pairs, which I assumed would continue betting the turn as well. So I was a little surprised and obviously very disappointed to see the button check back.
I mean, I would think that they would or could big bet a lot of their like top pair type hands that I think probably don't want to bet the turn. Ace 9, king 9, 8 9, jack 9, 9 10. I think those hands just make a lot more sense as like a check on the turn.
Okay. So yeah, I guess there is like a top pair portion of the range that I was kind of discounting that makes sense as a big bet on the flop and a check on the turn.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It's hard to get 3 streets with like jack 9.
Right.
Big bet on the flop makes a lot of sense. It's a hand that like has a lot of equity that's in your range, and then like you just don't want to bomb away.
Yep.
So the river pairs the board. So final board is the flop was 9-6-4, 2 diamonds, 1 heart. Turn was the 5 of hearts. River is the 4 of hearts. So flush completer, board pairing, river card.
Another decision, I guess. So like one of the things that I sort of struggle with as a concept is like in these situations when I have a hand that wants to play for all the money, kind of is happy to play for more than 1 bet. Kind of the best way to get more than 1 bet is usually to like check and check raise. That was like my line of thinking. Like I said, like in game I discounted a lot of their like 10-9 and 9-8. I think what I would have, kind of what I expected that portion of the range to do is like check back flop a decent amount of the time, but like you said, like they could definitely big bet the flop and then check back the turn. So when we got to this river, I thought that they have a lot of over pairs that like check the turn for some reason, and then just like hands that are, I guess, like flushes some of the time, like the backdoor hearts that didn't want to get check raised on the turn and didn't fire, or like some bricks diamonds that for the same reason didn't fire the turn, and now is gonna like look to bluff the river. Maybe they just have like also just like total complete nonsense that like big bet the flop and then got called, didn't want to bet the turn, and then just has to bluff the river with a hand like king jack of clubs or something crazy like that.
Sure, I think that you probably just have the one option of checking the river. I think that the incentive of pretty much all those hands that you just described is to generally bet. Their king jack of clubs, the incentive is to bet. They're not going to call. I think a 9 is going to go for value after the turn checks through, and then you check the river. I can't imagine like king 9 checking back. And I also can't imagine on like the 4 pairing, their over pairs checking back either. But the interesting thing is, when we check, which I think is just almost certainly going to be the action you choose.
Wait.
Are you choosing a different path?
No.
I think that like it's hard to get called. Like your check raise is hard to get called, right? Like and that's just, yeah. I think that like when you check raise here, it's hard to have like a ton of bluffs, I think, and that's kind of problematic.
You think like aces is just gonna like bet fold?
I mean, I think they should bet fold, but I don't know that they are going to bet fold. Like I think while it's hard for you to have a lot of bluffs, I think that a lot of times villains will just click call to click call with a hand like aces or kings, even like when they shouldn't. So, I think that like check raising all in has got to be the option. It's just, yeah, depending on the opponent, like I don't know that I would always check raise all in. I guess it depends on kind of their sizing selection. A lot of times, their sizing selection will just kind of make our decision for us. If they bet pot on the river, then I'm like, oh God, like I'm a little scared of.
Yeah, only getting called by flushes.
Yeah. And if they bet like a third or half, then like I'm actually pretty giddy about just sticking the rest of my stack in there.
Yep. So I do check. I didn't bet. And he bets a size where we don't have to worry about any of those things.
Yeah, just going to jam. And I think that's also on the table too with like a lot of their hands. I think that like, this could be their primary value size with their overpairs. Yeah. And, I think it's totally reasonable to have this as your primary value size with your overpairs as well, because you can get called by way worse hands that are in bluff catch mode. Villain having better, in this case, you're the villain, requires you to check just a nutted hand on the river and to also like not raise the flop as well. And I think that's probably a pretty rare occurrence. So like, yeah, I think the size is actually probably just totally fine by villain.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think, I mean, not shocked to see the size. Obviously, really happy that they picked the size instead of like some size where I get scared about not being able to check raise. Yeah, like, I kind of, when you have 7-8 in the spot, like things look great and like the size looks almost like kind of silly, but like when you consider like what the rest of my bluff catching region like feels like when it faces the size, like my 9x just hates this. Even a hand like pocket sevens, 8s or 7s,
8s,
yeah. Like 6x is just like, oh my God, like what? How do I decide how far down to go when I call? Yeah, I like the size as well. And we call and not.
They have the jacks.
Not too shocking of a hand,
Yeah, it's another one. I mean, yeah, like I think their top pairs can check the turn. I think their over pairs can also check the turn quite reasonably too. Yeah. They block the backdoor hearts.
And the diamonds, the front door diamonds.
Yeah, they have jacks with the jack of hearts. I actually really like the way villain played this hand. I think they got pretty unlucky. pretty unlucky, but it was well played nonetheless. All right, so that's going to do it for this first hand. Congratulations, you won another stack. We have another segment without incident.
Let's try to make
we'll
it
see
4
if
in a row.
Yeah, we'll see if it lasts for the back half of the show. Stick around.
Are you a lone wolf searching for the ultimate pack? The CPG Wolf program is a close-knit brotherhood hell-bent on one thing only: chasing poker greatness. Powered by bleeding-edge wolf strats and led by Coach Brad and his lieutenants, CPG Wolves are systematically prepared for almost any spot they'll encounter on the green felt. If you want to plug into an elite team and have a step-by-step game plan to realize your full poker potential, you can apply at cpgwolves.com. Space is limited, and the pack is only as strong as its weakest member. So only the hungriest, grittiest, and most driven will be accepted into the program. Applications are open at cpgwolves.com.
All right, welcome back to this Suited Connector episode of Tactical Tuesday. John, why don't we dive straight away into the action?
Yep. So another reg versus reg hand. I'm in the big blind this time. The PFR is on the button. He opens to $22. I have 5-4 spades. I 3-bet to 110. And the button
$110 hand. Ooh.
Puts in a 4-bet to 230. So now my $110 hand is a $230 hand.
Nice.
It got better, and I didn't even have to do anything.
Yeah, so you 3-bet from the big blind, the button 4-bets. I guess before we move along here, we'll talk about calling the 4-bet with the 4 and the 5 of spades.
Yeah, what's there to talk about?
All right, suited connector, 4-bet pot. We're good to go. This is
I guess
better
like,
than
I
aces.
guess like if it does seem like super super light. I mean, this is very, very close. I mean, this is the bottom of my 4-bet peeling range.
Really?
Exactly.
You're not peeling with 4-3 suited, huh?
I don't
it's a
3-bet
5-4.
I think, yeah. So the 5-4 is like actually the bottom.
Yeah. It's the bottom of your 3-bet range and the bottom of your call 4-bet range. Nice.
Yeah.
The same bottom.
See, when you put it that way, it sounds like I should have a different bottom for those two, but I don't.
Yeah, it does sound that way. But, you put in the $230 with your 4-5 of spades and playing 100 bigs deep, so you got 770 left. And you get about as good of a flop as you possibly can get without actually having more than one pair.
Mm-hmm.
You flop bottom pair with 5-high flush draw. Flop is king 10-4 with the king 10 of spades. I'm guessing you start by checking.
Yep.
Villain bets a quarter, which is typical 4-bet pot fare.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is like the only part of the hand that is going to warrant any discussion is this street. Check raise, check call. I mean, like, does the flop texture make a big difference?
Dude, like, this is your board. You do whatever you want. Just don't fold.
Okay. Yeah, I agree that like our hand has so much equity that it doesn't really matter. But like, okay, so like one of the things that I'm thinking about is that when I check raise here, do I ever fold out? Like, is there a range that I fold out? Maybe like, I just don't know.
No, you don't fold out any.
Okay,
like,
okay.
I mean,
does that like
your hand
dissuade you from check raising this hand at all? Like, does that make any difference to you? Because like that's basically that was like
I
my
mean,
big question.
I would just call because like the majority of my range wants to just call, and so like that's why I would just call because like it's hard to have a check raise range here that isn't some kind of flush draw.
Yeah. Okay. So you just call all your flush draws.
Oh, I didn't go that far.
Okay, but you're calling because you have a pair.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Like, I mean,
you can't fold out any worse. I mean, you can't fold out. There's like almost no hand that I'm folding out that like maybe ace 5 if it does 4-bet, but like I think that hand just calls a 3-bet a lot in position. Like maybe like ace 6, 7, 8 that does 4-bet in position is like a type of hand that I could fold out.
Yeah, and like, is that really like something that's good that's happening?
No.
Folding out ace 5
Yeah.
when like they have like 2 outs.
I could get it in versus ace 6 of spades or something, maybe.
Yeah. If they have a flush draw, the money's going in. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
Whether you hit, whether you raise.
So it does matter whether you
call.
You raise or call here.
It's
not really. So it does matter to you, like raising or calling here. Like there is, like you're clearly.
Yeah, it does
arguing for
matter.
Calling.
Yeah. I would call personally on like this specific board, this specific hand. Like I would just call because I think call makes sense. And like if villain does 4-bet ace jack off or something like that, then just giving them a chance to put all the money in. But I would be like, I would call the flop and SPRs around 1. I would just call all in on the turn if they jam. Yeah.
They bet small in turn. You're definitely getting the right price to call, so no
Then I just
problem
call.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm gonna realize my equity no matter what. They're not taking my equity from me no matter what I do. So like if I call the flop, I'm calling all in on the turn.
I also decided to realize my equity no matter what.
Yeah, you just stuck it all in, right? My question. Yeah, well, you raised, but I mean you just got a little cute with a 3x raise. They decided to put it all in for you. My question, I guess, is like, realistically speaking, what on God's earth besides a flush draw are you raising on the flop in a 4-bet pot here on King 10-4? And it doesn't matter. You don't have to answer the question because anything you say is a lie. It was rhetorical. You don't need to answer because whatever you say, I know is bullshit.
I can reach down deep and come up with something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a set of 10s. I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, sure. Anyway, that's it. I know whatever you say is just an untruth. So, regardless, you got it in against aces and you lost. So, there you go. You realize all the equity.
What a sad run out.
How do you miss?
I just don't understand how a pair and a
No.
flush draw. Didn't improve.
We're just gonna end the show with John intently staring at the run out for
Just-
5 minutes,
just
trying to like
9 of diamonds and a deuce of clubs.
9 of
Amazing.
diamonds. How did it happen?
How do they find
How did
these
it happen? All right. Well, yeah. I'm glad this hand didn't have too much to talk about. Yeah.
I think the flop is actually interesting though, at least for me. Like the check calling with these hands, and just, you know, if they do have anything, let them go for it. We're not gonna be shut out from realizing our equity no matter what.
Yeah, like I mean, if you have, you know, something else, ace deuce of spades or something, then like maybe it's fine to just go for it. Like you can maybe fold out some worse ace X, or like I don't know, 7-8 of spades if you want to get crazy and check raise and like get it in on the flop.
Yeah.
I think again you have 8 high, but a hand that the 4-5 that has a pair, I just don't see the incentive to fold out their unpaired hands.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're now 3 for 4. We the streak is over.
Yeah, somebody get the dry erase board and wash it off.
0.
Zero tactical Tuesdays without incident. And yeah, so for those of you,
if the run out was slightly different, we would still be 4 for 4.
yeah, he's still staring at the board intently.
It's not my fault.
Yep, it's definitely not your fault. We're gonna have our review show, I believe, next week, but don't hold me to it. We're working on it. We're trying to iron out the process. We almost have it covered, so we'll see you next week with that show. And yeah, that's all I have.
Well, see you next week.
Yeah, I stole your catchphrase there by accident. Peace.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter, join the Greatness Village community, book a coaching session, or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter at CPG Podcast.